So 1 week of the college football playoffs is in the books with no big surprises. Obviously, in my opinion, 3 of the teams didn't need to be there. And the other game was just a massive surprise. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to break them down a little bit, and we're going to move right on into the OU quarter. It is Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas to everybody. We love you guys. We love our followers. Dalton, let's move right into this. What are your big takeaways from the first week of the new expanded college football playoff?
Well, you mentioned it. There were 3 teams that we thought this is pointless. These games are going to go exactly how we thought they'd go. I'll say Clemson gave us, a teaser. Drive down the field on Texas, take up half of the first quarter, and we think, okay, they're going to give Texas a game. Sure enough, Texas still covers the spread of 13.5. So it's like those 3 games, it's like, we expected that. The one that I didn't expect, I did not expect Ohio State to dominate Tennessee the way they did. Granted, I don't know that Tennessee was ready in any aspect of that game. Like, they were there for show in a lot of ways. And it started with their team coming out shirtless to try and prove something in warmups. And it's like, okay, you knew it was going to be cold. You're going to Ohio in December. You don't need to, you're tough. You're a college football player. You're a Division I player. Plenty of your dudes are going to go pro. We know you're tough. I don't care about that. Are you ready to play the game? And it just felt like they were there more for show than anything else. And they did not show up ready to play. Will Howard put on an absolute clinic in that game. That's the one that surprised me the most. The other 3 games did not surprise me. I think there are some college football fans out there that really wanted those games to be close. And the funniest thing is Kurt Signetti on College Game Day that morning talking about how we beat the crap out of teams in the top 25. No, you don't. You suck. You actually didn't play anybody this year. And Notre Dame, Chief, congrats, man. You got a playoff win before Oklahoma. I'll give you that.
I saw Chief today.
Oh, nice.
And, he totally thinks that they're just going to wipe the floor with Georgia now.
Okay. Even with a backup, Chief, it's not happening. Gosh, look at your schedule. Come on.
Yeah, I gave him some crap about it for sure. Any of the games other than the Ohio State Tennessee game that you thought were good games? I didn't really think anything was a good game.
Out of my mind.
I mean, Clemson marches right down the field in that first.
It took a whole the first half of the first quarter they took up. That was great. I was like, oh yeah, wow, we're gonna have a game.
They marched right down the field. Took like 8 minutes off the clock in that drive. And then they didn't do crap the rest of the half. They got a field goal at the end of the first half, but at halftime they're down 28-10.
How'd you feel about that blindside block on the pick 6? What are your thoughts on that? Because I know that's the rule, but should the refs have called that, I guess, is the question. And does that change the game? How much?
I know it's the rule. I don't like that. I don't like that call at all.
Okay.
Letter of the law, they should have thrown the flag. But I'll just say this. I don't like that rule. That's an offensive lineman that's down the field trying to make a block and let his defender, or I guess it's a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
But there's an offensive lineman down the field, and the defensive lineman makes a block on him. And I thought it was pretty questionable, honestly, whether he was in front of him or not. His helmet was in front. It wasn't like he totally got him from the side because his helmet was in front of the offensive player. I don't like that call, but it's a call that they're going to call. They're so worried about the safety of the players now.
Yeah.
That they're going to make that call. Do I think it made a difference in the game? I don't think Clemson was going to win the game either way.
Right.
But it may have put a little bit more pressure on Texas. because that would have made it a 7-point game at that time. But I felt like Texas proved in the second quarter that they could have their way with Clemson's defense. Clemson could not stop the run. Texas was getting 6, 7, 8 yards a carry against that Clemson defense. So all they had to do was cram the ball down Clemson's throat some more, and it was going to be over anyways.
And I didn't feel like that pick changed the game for Quinn Ewers, because he knew he put it right in his guy's chest. It just bounced up in the air. So it's not like Quinn was startled at that moment. It's not like he was feeling pressure in that moment. That's why I just, you heard Sark talk about it after. He's like, he threw a pick, but it wasn't his fault. Not that he's throwing the other guy under the bus necessarily, but somebody has to take fault for it. And that one wasn't Quinn. And so when we talked about it, if you put pressure on him, he's liable to make some turnovers. But Clemson just didn't get enough pressure on him. They just weren't as good as Texas.
I agree.
And that, even though that pick six does make it a 7-point game, Quinn was still in a rhythm, playing well. The run game was working. I don't think it would have necessarily changed the outcome of the game. I don't know. There were no surprises to me other than the Ohio State Tennessee game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, we are not going to break down the other games, the other playoff games this week, because we're going to come to you a day early next week. You're going to get it on Tuesday, where we're going to have all 4 of the playoff games. And so let me just say right off the bat, we thank you guys for following. We thank you guys for watching. Anywhere your podcast can be seen, anywhere you can watch podcasts, we are there. So go find them, go watch them. We will be there next week on Tuesday. You should have our podcast up and ready to go, breaking down all the playoff games. That being said, Dalton, we're going to move right in to the OU quarter. Going to have a nice short podcast here on Christmas Day. We're going to move right into the OU quarter. And let's first talk about, is there any portal news that you would like to talk about just right off the top here before we move into the game?
Well, obviously we've had some success in the portal, and that starts with Mateer, right? I mean, that's the quarterback we all wanted, and bringing in Arbuckle, bringing his guy, we know that we have a quarterback now who at least will know. He's going to understand, and he's going to be able to execute the system that Arbuckle is going to want to run. And that's just something we lacked this year. And so we're obviously excited about that. We know we've lost some guys in the portal, lost a couple to Nebraska. Desan McCullough announced, I don't remember if it was today or yesterday, but announced he was headed to Nebraska in the portal. And he's been a big part of the Oklahoma defense the last couple of years. So the big deal is, though, on the offensive side, we're regaining. I mean, we know Jackson Arnold's gone. We know a tight end that Bauer Sharp is gone, and we're happy because he was very dull for us. And so, I mean, I think we've had some success in the portal. The tough thing about the portal, though, is you don't really know if you had success in it until the season starts, right? Until they produce, until they come in and they make plays and they make things happen. You don't really know. But the big one for me is, it seems as though Biedenbo's doing his job. It seems as though he is getting the number 3 offensive lineman in the portal. Came to Norman, didn't go anywhere else after the visit. He wanted to be here, committed.
Derek Simmons.
That's a big deal.
Derek Simmons. He was also being courted by Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Alabama, and Texas A&M. Had all given him offers, and he came to Norman and didn't leave. Derek Simmons is going to be a big tackle for us. And he comes from Western Carolina, but don't let that fool you, because he did play at Wisconsin, I believe, the year or two before that. And he's played 900 and something snaps and only given up 3 sacks through his career. So he's going to be good. He's going to plug in with some of our high school recruits that we have and some of our offensive linemen that we already have there. We also got offensive lineman Luke Baklenko from Stanford. that transferred to Norman. And so they're jumping into a group of young guys that we have and some other talented recruits and portal guys. They're both going to jump in there, and we're going to be moving really good. We've got a couple of wide receivers. We got a tight end in the portal, which we really needed. I mean, the tight end was a position that if we didn't pick up a tight end in the portal, our tight ends that we have on roster right now had a combined 3 catches. And so we would have been
awful.
We would have been in really bad shape. But we got a tight end commitment from Kennesaw State named Carson Kent, who had 32 receptions for 382 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. But he's predominantly a blocking tight end. But we can use those blocking tight ends. I wish we would have had some blocking tight ends this year to shore up the end of that line. And sounds like they're still looking for another tight end, maybe another couple of wide receivers, offensive linemen. But we also got another player from Kennesaw State, and that's the punter, Jacob Ulrich, who averaged 46 yards a punt last year. He was all conference. He was selected to the Conference USA all freshman and first team all conference. So he was a freshman. And he was first team all conference in Conference USA. He will probably hop right in and take Luke Elzinga's spot, who Luke Elzinga averaged 45.2 yards a punt this year for OU. So really, really good shape there. We haven't we haven't signed any portal transfers on the defensive side of the ball, but we do have 2 big ones coming back, and Kip Lewis and R. Mason Thomas have announced that they're coming back. R. Mason Thomas, I think, kind of tested the NFL waters and seeing what his draft grade was and decided to go ahead and come back for another year. Kip Lewis decided to stay. We did lose, like Dalton said earlier, Deson McCullough to Nebraska, but I think we're going to be fine on the defensive side of the ball. All that being said, we still have the spring portal, and the longer these teams go through the playoffs, they're going to have some other – once they lose, they're going to have some other people enter the portal as well, which ends on the 28th. The portal ends on December 28th, and then they'll have to decide whether they're going into the portal in spring ball or not after spring practices. So
we talked about this last podcast, and then this happened between that podcast and this. Blanking on Arizona State's head coach. Can you think of the name, top of your head?
Kenny Dillingham?
Yes, Dillingham. Did you see that he told his players that if they enter the portal, they're more than welcome to stay through the playoffs? And we talked about there's no way there's a coach that's going to do that. And then he did it. So he's going to have players enter the portal and still play these playoff games. And that's not something you're going to see other coaches do. I really don't think so.
No, I don't think there's anybody else in the playoffs right now that have come out and said that. Now,
but that allows them to commit to a team and finish the season with Arizona State.
Right. Which is crazy. But, I mean, he's a player's guy. Like Kenny Dillingham, we've talked about it. I know he says Arizona State is his end-all, be-all job. He wants to be there. He played there. He's a Arizona State Sun Devil through and through. But that being said, he's going to be offered some crazy amounts of money, I feel like, in the offseason to take a big-time job. And
that's part of why I feel like he did what he did. Like, if you're a player's coach,
you may be right.
They have a decision to make every single day, which is they can stay here or another school that can offer them more financial opportunity. He's going to do the same thing. He knows that. He would take a better interview. He would take more money. He would put his family in a better position, those type of things. Everybody wants to move forward. And that's just like, I don't know. Part of me likes it that he's willing to do that in today's new age. And part of me,
I love it.
Part of me is like, I wish we could just be loyal and finish things and stick it out and all those, but that's just not the way college football works right now.
Well, and when you're at a place like Arizona State, you're not going to be year in, year out in the playoffs. It's
Sure.
not like an Ohio State or an Oregon or a
Shoot.
Georgia.
We'll say it, the Big 12. If you're in the Big 12, you're not guaranteed 2 spots every single year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. You're not guaranteed it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, I commend him for saying that and for sticking with his guns on it. And I don't know. I haven't seen if any of those players have entered the portal or have signed somewhere else. But those players like Cam Scatabo, he's getting
he's being talked to whether he enters the portal or not. There's
right.
people hitting him up.
There's people that are just talking to his family and friends and agent if he has one, because he is a beast. He is crazy. I'm interested to see how Texas deals with that, but we'll talk about that next week. Well, coming up this Friday at 11 a.m., which we talked about earlier, is a stupid time for a bowl game, but that's also what we get for being 6-6. Friday at 11 a.m., you got OU versus Navy in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. OU's a 3-point favorite going into this game. You're going to have Michael Hawkins Jr. starting at quarterback for OU. You're going to have, is it Blake? I think his name's Blake Horvath.
Yeah.
Starting for Navy. What is your breakdown of this game? What's all you need to do to win this game from the defensive side of the ball?
Oh, defensive side, you just key on the run. Like Blake has more rushing touchdowns than he does passing touchdowns. And he's tough. He's going to run through the first tackler. Like, he is very tough. I did not expect them to dominate Army the way they did in that rivalry, especially after Army just won the conference the way they did. Like, I didn't. 31-13 was not what I expected in that type of game, but he's physical. He just plays almost some old school football. Like, he doesn't care who's in front of him. He is going to run. He's not going to try and bounce around you. He doesn't care about getting outside. He's going to go through you. Is he capable of throwing the ball? Yeah, but he's only got 1,200 yards passing. So I'm saying you stop the run, defense is going to do pretty good. It's a different style. Granted, Navy's not going to run the traditional triple option. They've got some different looks that they're running with Harbaugh, but I think that if you stop the run, you're going to be feeling pretty good and putting your defense in a position to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he averages 7 yards a carry for almost 1,100 yards this year. So, 15 touchdowns on the ground. He's only thrown for 13.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a stop the run.
And Oklahoma's defense has to be disciplined. Like, his long pass is 77 yards. And I guarantee that long pass comes off of some play action, some misdirection, some stuff that the defense did not prepare for. They made a mistake, weren't disciplined, because he's not just sitting back in the pocket and trying to throw one deep. It comes off of play actions. He's going to be under center a lot. There's going to be some motion. You're going to see a different look as Oklahoma's defense. Just plan to stop the run, be disciplined, do your assignment. We've talked about that a lot throughout this year, specifically the OU Texas weekend. When we started to talk about how Oklahoma played some selfish football where they started to do their assignment and their teammates' assignment because they didn't trust. You got to trust one another. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to do their job, and you've got to play just smart, disciplined football. Cover your assignment, and I think you'll be fine on the defensive side.
Yeah, I agree. On the offensive side of the ball, Michael Hawkins Jr. getting the start. He has completed 62.5% of his passes for 536 yards, only 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. We know he's had a couple of fumbles. That South Carolina game was brutal. The only game I went to this year, and I wish I hadn't. But
remember that.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had stayed home and watched that on TV so I could watch, reruns of Family Guy after the first quarter. But yeah, it was brutal. Offensive side of the ball, establishing the run to me. I know I sound like a broken record, and I say this every week, but I'm right when it comes to most of these games where I talk about it. Establishing the run is huge. Got to be able to establish the run. He's going to have a lot of running plays called for him. He's going to have a lot of RPOs. He's going to have a lot of zone reads. So he's going to take a lot of the runs. We do have Gavin Sawchuk, Sam Franklin, Taylor Tatum, Xavier Robinson, all listed, on the depth chart as this one or this one or this one or this one, right? So we're going to have to be able to establish the run. We're going to have to be able to block downhill and move some of those Navy defenders out of the way. Offensive linemen got to be able to get to the second level, to the linebackers, to be able to move them one way or another, give the running backs an opportunity and a place to move once they're in the hole. So to me, I don't see Michael Hawkins coming out and having a 300-yard passing game or anything like that. But I think if we can rush for a couple hundred yards on the ground combined, I think we have a chance in this game. OU's a 3-point favorite, like I said earlier, but it's not going to be easy because we're playing a very different style of team than we're used to.
And a team that isn't going to have issues in the portal, honestly. Like, we are going to have to mix and match some guys. Navy's coming in with basically the team they've had all season. I mean, this is a big deal to them to beat a program like Oklahoma.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's what makes it even tougher is you're not playing a team that's got, I mean, how many teams have I bowl games? I've not watched a full bowl game all the way through, but I've caught a lot of football just because bowl games don't mean the same. But in every single game, well, this team's got 32 players in the portal. Then what's the point of playing?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Coastal Carolina for a quarter and a half the other day, and they said over 36 guys, I think is what they said. I don't quote me on that number, but it's definitely over 30 in the portal. So they just said they've got guys playing positions they haven't played all year long. They got a quarterback who hasn't seen the field, and they were down like 27-0. And it's like, what's the point of playing?
Yeah, well, wasn't it Marshall? Wasn't it Marshall that said they weren't playing their bowl game?
They were like, I'm not playing Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
We're not playing our bowl game. We don't even have enough people to field a team.
I do wonder if they weren't playing Ole Miss, would they have played? Know. I wonder that. Yeah. But I don't blame the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either, except it's definitely a decent amount of money taken away from your conference. So I don't know how your conference feels about that.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. No, they're not the SEC, so.
Yeah, they're not in the SEC, so they'll take all the money they can.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't know how that works out either. It's going to be interesting to watch this game. Hopefully, I get to watch some of it at least while I'm working on Friday. But I'm not calling an OU win.
No, I mean, well, and you can't. Brent hasn't won a bowl game yet. I'm not confident in saying Oklahoma's going to win this game because we're playing with a ton of pieces we haven't played with this year. Who's going to step up at wide receiver? We don't even know yet if Burks is going to play. There's just a lot of questions. I'm excited for the fact that Arbuckle will be on the sidelines. He was announced as the quarterback coach just with the recent changes. And I personally do think that makes a big difference. Does it make a difference in scoring a ton of points? I don't think that necessarily, but we did see a change when Brent finally said, okay, Kevin Johns, you're going to be the quarterback coach. We did see a difference in Jackson Arnold after that. And so I think that Arbuckle with our offense is going to help. And I know it's not his offense yet, but I'm also not convinced that he's not throwing little pieces in here and there as they're going through practice.
I've thought that too.
Like, he's not just keeping his mouth shut. I mean,
I've thought that too. And there's been a large contingent of people that are like, look, if we don't get John Mateer, Michael Hawkins Jr. fits right into his offense.
I've heard that.
So
I hope
it
Michael
could
Hawkins
be interesting.
be another backup. Like, I hope you're fine being a backup
Yeah.
for another year, because I do like Hawkins. His game is different, but I like him because he's competitive. And the South Carolina game, that is 100% on the dude that got let go. Like,
yeah,
our run game worked. We picked up 2 first downs. You and I were at that game. They picked up 2 first downs right away on the ground and completely abandoned the run game and put him in impossible positions.
yeah.
So, like, Oklahoma should have never been down 21-0 to start that game anyways.
Right.
So,
Right.
like, I think Hawkins is better than what we saw. I think he's a gamer. I think he's a competitive player. I think he'll make some plays, but I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see him leave the sidelines and talk with Arbuckle and just kind of watch that dynamic for the first time.
Yeah.
Arbuckle to quarterback.
It'll be something I'm paying attention to for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, guys, like we said, it's going to be a short one. Merry Christmas to all you guys. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share somewhere. Tell your friends about us. Have them come watch the podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday. The 30th, to break down the rest of the playoff games that are coming up next week. And I guess break down what happened in the OU game. It makes me a little nervous, but
hopefully a dub.
Hopefully a dub. Well, Dalton, you know what they say, right?
The weekend is good,
but the midweek, it's always better.
And boom goes the dynamite.